I'd like to call this meeting to order. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the ETSU Board of Trustees meeting. I'd like to begin by congratulating Mr. Tony Treadway, whose appointment to the board was recently confirmed by members of Tennessee General Assembly's House and Senate Education Committees. Congratulations, Trustee Ted Treadway. The university has celebrated some monumental achievements since our last meeting in November. I am delighted to note that ETSU recently reported a record high in annual sponsored program and research funding, reaching $70.4 million for the last fiscal year. This unprecedented support underscores our institution's commitment to academic excellence and discovery, as well as bolstering our efforts to provide a world-class education while driving innovation for this region. Likewise, ETSU's College of Business and Technology recently introduced the area's Economic Update, which offers another excellent example of our commitment to go beyond the classroom and positively impact our communities. The report is published quarterly and provides critical insights into regional and state economic trends. Turning to our esteemed Bill Gatton College of Pharmacy, I am so proud to announce that the college now ranks among the top echelons of accredited pharmacy schools nationwide. The class of 2023 achieved an astounding 95.4% first-time pass rate on the NAPLAX exam, eclipsing the national average pass rate of 78.6%. This accomplishment not only places ETSU at the forefront in Tennessee and the Southeast, but also ahead of every institution listed in the United States News and World Report's pharmacy schools. ETSU's pass rates were second in the nation among accredited pharmacy schools. This achievement offers a wonderful reminder of why the Tennessee General Assembly chose to begin providing public funding for Gatton this past year, and we would like to thank them for their faith in our faculty and students, and we plan on continuing to make this community proud. And finally, I'd like to cordially invite the public to participate in our upcoming Festival of Ideas. This year, we're honored to host best-selling authors Mitch Albom and Piper Kerman, whose literary works have touched millions. Albom is the author of the acclaimed book, Tuesdays with Morrie, and Kerman is the author of Orange is the New Black, which inspired a hit TV show. This festival embodies ETSU's commitment to cultivate conversations around life's most important questions and engage in meaningful dialogue around important ideas. For more information and to reserve tickets, please visit etsu.edu/ideas. Thank you, and now I'd like to ask Dr. Green to take the roll.
Trustee Allen. Here. Trustee Ayers. Trustee DiCarlo. Here. Trustee Fry-Clark. Here. Trustee Grisham. Here. Trustee Ramsey. Here. Trustee Stegall-Jones. Here. Trustee Shake. Trustee Treadway. Here. Chair Latimer.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great. Dr. Green, do we have any individuals who have pre-registered to speak to the board as part of the public comment?
You do not, Madam Chair.
Okay. Next, trustees, you'll find the minutes from our November meeting in your materials. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Earlier this morning, the Academic Research and Student Success Committee met, and I'll now turn to Trustee Allen for an update on his committee's work.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to be brief since most of you all were at the committee, and you probably don't need me to read the whole thing to you again. We had two action items. Both were approved. The first was the general education redesign proposal, and the second was the approval of the academic calendars. We also had three information items: the academic notification, the annual institute review for graduate medical education, and this was pretty interesting, the update on the strategic initiative related to synthetic biology. That was the contents of our meeting.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Allen. Our Finance and Administration Committee also met this morning, so I'll now turn to Trustee DiCarlo for an update on his committee's work.
Thank you. I'm scared not to read what I was told to read, so I'm going to read it verbatim. The Finance and Administrative Committee met this morning to review several items. The committee approved a 0% increase for the 24-25 academic year tuition for the College of Medicine. The committee approved the housing and food services rate for fall 2024, which are included in the board consent agenda. The proposed increase for housing ranges from 5.2 increase to an 11.2 increase to support facility maintenance, inflationary operating costs, and debt service. The university is requesting a 5.1% or $100 per semester increase in the silver meal plan with similar increases in other plans. The payments for the plans to the vendor will increase by 5.3% per the contract. As an informational item, the committee reviewed the criteria for consideration of a tuition and mandatory fee increase, which management's current assessment of the factors. Ms. Graham also presented comparative tuition and mandatory fee information for all the public universities in Tennessee. ETSU continues to be an affordable option to the state. The Tennessee Higher Education Commission proposed a 0 to 4% tuition and mandatory fee increase for in-state undergraduate students. For budget development purposes, the university is considering a 4% increase in tuition and mandatory fees. As an informational item, the committee discussed the salary pools in the governor's proposed budget. The campus could receive $2.7 million in salary improvement funding from the state if the proposed budget is approved. An additional $2.2 million would have to be funded by tuition increase, enrollment growth, or reallocation of other expenditures or appropriation dollars. The committee received a quarterly financial update which compares operating revenues and expenditures from the current year to the prior year. The second quarter report shows a 6.5 increase in unrestricted revenue year over year and a corresponding 5% increase in unrestricted expenditures as of December 31st. Ms. Graham presented the second quarter agreements over $250,000. This included one contract and several RFPs in process. The committee also received a brief update on the transition to Oracle and the budget model redesign. Both projects are meeting milestones, and Oracle is on track for July 1 implementation date. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee DiCarlo. And finally, I'll turn to Trustee Stigall-Jones to provide an update on the Audit Committee's role.
Thank you. We had a very small agenda today, but it had a lot of information. I'd first like to say our fearless leader, our Director of Internal Audit, wasn't with us today. Her mother passed away yesterday, but our Associate Director filled in beautifully for her, and I want to thank Martha for filling in so quickly and on the spare of the moment. We did have one action item, and that was a revision to the FY24 audit plan. We added 2 items on that plan for fraud, waste, and abuse, potential fraud, waste, and abuse allegations that came through. And then we removed 3 items to make room for those 2. We had 2 information items. One was the recommendation log status as of January 31st, 2024. There were no audits completed since we last met. However, Ms. Weiniger did update us that several were going to be issued by the time we meet again, and that they were all rolling, none of them are behind, and they are in good status. The bulk of our meeting consisted of Jeremy Ross and 3 of our public safety officers they updated us on the annual public safety and Clery report update. That is a requirement that report is done. I won't go through it. It's 94 pages. It's very comprehensive. But at the end of the day, it does conclude statistics from 2020, 2021, and 22. And crime on our campus did not increase for 2022. So that is great news. We all recognize the hard work that those folks put in every day, put their life on the line for our students. They're counselors. They just have so many roles, and we appreciate them so much. And that was a very important part of our meeting today.
Thank you, Trustee Stigall-Jones. As noted in the materials in your agenda, you'll find several routine items, including items acted upon during this morning's committee meetings, including on the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that members would like to pull for discussion and consideration by the full board? Hearing none, I would then ask for a motion for the adoption of the consent agenda.
I so move.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll receive an update on the impact of our federal college access and success programs from Dr. Ronnie Gross.
Good afternoon, Chair Latimer and Board of Trustee members. I appreciate the opportunity to present today. Thank you, Dr. Nolan, for letting us do this. I'm Ronnie Gross. I'm the TRIO director here at East Tennessee State. I grew up in Sullivan County, the foot of Holston Mountain, out there on 421, last house on the mountain. I was a free lunch kid in high school and elementary school. I lived in the Bristol, Tennessee Housing Authority federal projects. And when my parents divorced, whenever I was 9 years old, moved into the city, and both of them had a 9th grade education. So I'm a TRIO alumni. I'm very proud to be a product of these programs. So what are TRIO programs? I know some of the trustee members were here for the presentation I did in November of 2019. But for the new members, maybe I can tell a little bit about it quickly. I want to respect your time. But TRIO programs are federally funded programs, and they're designed to identify and provide services for individuals who are low income and first generation. 2/3 of our students in our programs are low income and first generation. Low income are basically Pell eligible students, and first generation are students that their parents haven't graduated from college. TRIO has 7 programs that are targeted for low income individuals, and it's a pipeline for middle school, high school, college students, adults, and veterans. But you say, well, there are 7 programs. Why is it called TRIO programs? Well, back in the early 60s, Upward Bound came into prominence in 1964, 65, and that was for high school students to help, get them into college. And after they did that, they realized that, it's Upward Bound serves such a small number, we need a talent search program, which works with a large number of students, more of a shotgun approach, if you will. And that program was started in 1968. And then when the students got into college, they realized these students needed support, and that was the Student Support Services Program. So for years, the programs were called TRIO programs by the legislators, so that's where the TRIO programs came from. But as they've gone along, they've added other TRIO programs that we will talk about. I need to move my slide here. ETSU is one of the TRIO, one of the best-known TRIO programs in the country. We are one of 17 institutions that host over 10 or more TRIO programs. And we're one of 20 that hosts both the STEM, SSS STEM grant and the Upward Bound Math Science. And we're one of 9 who have all 7 TRIO programs. Okay, why do we have this? Why do we have this at East Tennessee State? Well, one, our region has many individuals who are eligible for the program. 2, our university, I'm very proud of our university's efforts. We are well supported and well equipped to serve these students. Dr. Nolan, Dr. Sherlin are very supportive of the programs. They understand the mission. As you all know, Dr. Nolan wrote the first statewide Gear Up for the state of Tennessee. So it's a very similar to, it's a sister program as TRIO, if you will. So President Nolan knows exactly what TRIO is about. So I feel really good that I have his support. Our administrative structure here, we have multiple grants and running those through different ones. University marketing communications, they do a great job of publicizing our events. Ms. Baird in governmental relations make sure that we have audience with legislators, federal legislators. Our accounting, our budget office, they do a tremendous job. They support us there. And of course, research and sponsor programs really do a good job of supporting us and make sure that we're able to submit multiple grants during these funding times. Another reason, the target school personnel, the guidance counselors and principals at the schools really buy into our programs. They understand what they're about. Recently, we're trying to work on getting a gear up, and I've been talking to superintendents, and the 3 items that I've been focusing on for those grants are STEM programs, careers, and develop a college-going culture. And every director and superintendent that I've talked to have really bought into that, and those are really, so we're on target with the things that we want to work on. We have a lot of support from the job centers, veterans agencies. We have a VA right across the railroad tracks here, so we are primed to have all these TRIO programs. And most importantly, and this is something that's I've really come to notice in the last 4 or 5 years, our students feel very supported and they feel valued at this university. So I applaud all the other my SLE partners and our campus for doing that for our students. Since I've been here since 1989, February 1st, so I just celebrated my 35th anniversary, so I'm proud to be here. But we brought in over $59 million and served over almost 52,000 people, so I feel very proud of that. We currently serve 2,400 students in the area, middle school, high school students. For our talent search program, we're in the Carter, Johnson, and Sullivan counties. I'm sorry, Hawkins, Johnson, and Sullivan counties. Our high school student, we're in the upper bound math and upper bound math science. We're in Carter County, Johnson County, Unicoi, the city school systems of Bristol, Elizabethton, Johnson City, and Kingsport. So we have 12 high schools we serve in upper bound. We also serve 1,000 adults per year in the Educational Opportunity Center program. And that's basically an information program. We do a lot of financial aid assistance and helping individuals fill out their financial aid forms and work on letting them navigate, help them navigate the enrollment process. We have a Veterans Upward Bound program. We're one of 60 in the country, and we work with 125 veterans per year, and we help them get prepared for college and help them maybe with some refresher courses. Some of them have been out for a while. You'll hear from a former VUB student here at the end. And we also have one for aspiring doctoral students through the Ronald McNair program. We serve 29 students there and help them get into the PhD pipeline. Some of the results from our programs, 73% of our talent search students are enrolled in post-secondary education. And I think Dr. Nolan has talked about the post-secondary enrollment rates from our area high schools and how we've had a dip in that college-going culture. How that cliff is facing us. It's right out there. 57% of our upward bound students in 6 years graduate with a bachelor's degree. 75% of our ELC participants earn a secondary school diplomas and equivalent. And 89% of our Veterans Upward Bound completers end up enrolling in post-secondary education. Here on campus, we have a program called Student Support Services, and it's a comprehensive wraparound services program. We offer peer tutoring, peer and faculty mentoring, and we do academic and career coaching, help the students with college survival, also provide economic and financial literacy, and provide personal and career counseling. We also just recently obtained a Student Support Services STEM and Health Sciences grant. It's focused on those STEM and Health Sciences students. We help them technology literacy, technological innovations, scientific research, communications. We're working on developing a pre-internship program for some of our students. Some of the results of the SSS program, and this is from the 22-23 year, 90% of our students from the fall of 2022 were retained to the fall of 2023. And we had a 6-year graduation rate of 59%. In our new STEM Health Sciences Student Support Services, we had 95% of those students return from the fall of 2022. What we've learned, in preparing this presentation, Dr. Kirkwood and Dr. Sherlin thought it would be nice if we could talk about what we've learned in the past 35 years or more. Some of the programs have been here since 1976. But I've asked the TRIO staff to help me on some of the things that, that they've learned from our TRIO students. And in the area, there are very few college-oriented role models for our low-income first-generation students. They may have a history of educational failure in their family, where someone's been in college, and they may have family or academic health situations. Some parents just have to work all the time, and they have very few opportunities to help their students. We have some complex family dynamics. A majority, almost 2/3 of our students are in a family where they're not with their biological parents. They're with grandparents, brothers, uncles. So the family dynamics are just very complex there. Students have difficulty making sound financial decisions, and they learn that from their parents. Sometimes their parents are in desperate situations and maybe not do something financially sound, and that's some of the practices that they see. Asking for help is very humbling for our students. It makes them feel like they seem weak by asking for help. This is my term, super responsible. These students just are so responsible, and I guess they feel the burden because they're sacrificing their time. Their families want them to work whenever they graduate high school to provide income for the family. So they're focused on being successful. And they struggle with wanting to have a new life and feel like that they're leaving behind their family. They're already leaving behind their friends and their neighbors when they go to college. So I hate to put this analogy out there, but it's almost like a sports analogy. Y'all like this? It would be like our basketball players going to Furman without the coach, without the band, without the student body, and they just have to get there. So it's like playing an away conference game. I mean, our students, I want to make that analogy. But our students have tremendous adaptability and grit and resilience. They're stubborn, but when you match stubborn with guidance of how to use that stubbornness help them navigate that, it's really powerful. So probably the best part, I'd like to have Holland Boyd come up and give his testimony for TRIO, and then Madam Chair, after that, if I could have another TRIO alumni come up and speak. So I'll give the mic to Mr. Boyd.
Good afternoon. My name is Holland Boyd. I'm a United States Army veteran and a second-year student here at ETSU studying finance. I'm the first male in my family to graduate high school and the first generational college student and low-income student to start at ETSU. When I first started here at ETSU, I got involved with Veteran Upward Bounds, meeting Mr. Stout, Dr. Young, Miss Sarah, and Miss Joan Hathaway. They helped me enroll in college and through their program, Veteran Upward Bounds. I then learned about the TRIO's support services. I qualified for their program because I'm a first generational college student. And then in student support services, I participated in tutoring and got acquainted with Dr. Strode, who has been a significant mentor and helped me sort out both college and life decisions. I also got acquainted with two phenomenal tutors, Macy Mason and Carolee Weber, who have helped me excel tremendously academically. Dr. Strode and Mr. Stout have supported me and helped me a lot regarding college and life path. Student support services and veteran upward bound programs have helped me phenomenally as a first generation non-traditional student and as a veteran student. I would not be standing in front of you today without these programs. To point out how excellent these programs here are at ETSU, I recently got into a car accident and I relied heavily on faculty and the staff here to care for me in more ways than one. And I have established myself and ingrained myself in this great community. which I'm very grateful for. I got to talk to Dr. Strode more often as I'd go see him in his office. He would advise me as a first-year college student, which helped me out a lot, and learned what I needed to do with a major and a career. He suggested that I go and interview entrepreneurs, people in the finance careers and wealth management, as well as accounting industries. Through Veteran Upward Bounds and Student Support Services, I've received scholarships that have greatly aided my academic success, for which I am incredibly grateful for. Dr. Strode and Professor Alexander and CBAT have also gotten me involved with the leadership program led by Dr. White Wright and their life design workshop, for which I am also so very thankful for. Furthermore, I would like to highlight some outstanding faculty and professors that have aided my success here at ETSU. The following are Professor Ms. Flannery, Professor Dr. Dodd, Professor Dr. Hardin, Professor Ms. Alexander, and then Professor Mr. Miller. The faculty as follows: Mr. Stout, Dr. Strode, Dr. Young, Ms. Royce, Dr. White Wright, Mr. Adcox, Mr. Wilder, and Mr. Hasselroth. Thank you.
Yeah, just reminded me, whenever we're doing the corporate innovation, the TRIO offices were relocated in Clement Hall, and we had our tutoring lab in our offices, in our office area. And there was nothing more heartwarming to see students helping other students. The power of that, and the grace and gratitude that students had for that program was really phenomenal, and I was glad to see that. The next person I'd like to introduce is Stephen Hendricks. He's a computing instructor here at ETSU. I told him he only had 3 minutes. This is not a lecture. But Mr. Hendricks is an alumni of our Upward Bound program. Mr. Hendricks.
So as a faculty member, I get to speak forever, right? That's what we do as faculty. So good afternoon. My name is Stephen Hendricks. I am faculty in the Department of Computing in the College of Business and Technology. I currently serve as the past president of the ETSU Faculty Senate. I also serve as a county commissioner representing the 3rd District of the people of Unicoi County on our Unicoi County Commission. But today I get the chance to tell you something that had a tremendous and forever impact on my life, and that is my time in the Upward Bound program. There are moments that we can all talk about in our lives that have had a tremendous and positive impact, whether it be weddings, the birth of children, whether it be that job or promotion. There are so many impact moments that we can measure in our lives. For me, one of those impact moments in my life came in the fall of 1995. I was sitting in my first period class at Unicoi County High School when the Channel 1 TV came on and played our Channel 1 activities. And then there was a second video. And that video was talking about this program called Upward Bound, a program that wanted to work with high school students in preparing them for success in high school and preparing them to be successful in college. And I remember my buddy, he was the kicker for the football team. His name was Establo. He looked at me and he said, "Who would want to be in that type of program?" And I remember going, well, I think I do. I kind of want to be in that program. And so I filled out my application that day with the guidance counselor, had a chance to be interviewed by the Upward Bound staff. And in September of 1995, my life was forever changed because I received my acceptance letter into the Upward Bound program. At the time, I thought, well, this is cool. I'm in the Upward Bound program. This is great. I have no idea what that really means, but I got a letter. That's really cool. It's from that really big university down the road that I have no idea what it is. But what I come to discover is that over my high school career, the ETSU program, Upward Bound program, exposed me to the college world. As a first-generation college student, my parents were not graduates. My grandparents, my siblings, my aunts, uncles, people I attended church with. So there was no exposure to the world of college and what it meant to be a successful student in preparation for going to college. So in my 4 years of high school, the Upward Bound program challenged me to do more than just show up at class and play baseball, which I wasn't really that good at anyways. But they challenged me to do more. They challenged me to take college preparatory classes. They challenged me to do dual enrollment my junior and senior year, preparing myself for my time in college. They explained to me the importance of preparing as a freshman and a sophomore for your college experience. They showed me that college was something that I could achieve, that I could be the first one in my family to graduate with an undergraduate degree. One of the core components of the Upward Bound program is the summer residential program. Through the summer program, I had the opportunity to make lifelong friends and discover my future career. Because when I began Upward Bound and as a student in high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do as a career. To me, if you went to college, you went to college to become a doctor. And that's it. That's all I kind of knew and expected from going to college. I had an opportunity to do a job placement and a job shadowing in which I followed a pediatrician around for a day. And I discovered quickly that being a doctor was not for me. Why? Because I hate the sight of blood. That's going to be a big issue. So I discovered that that wasn't the career that I wanted to go down. One of the goals of the Upward Bound summer program is to expose students to courses that they may not traditionally get to take when they are in high school. And at the time, my exposure to computer science-related concepts was limited to my ability to survive on the Oregon Trail and learn how to type on a typewriter. However, it was during one of my Upward Bound summer classes that two business folks from the community came in and taught a class in the Intro to Web Design. And I thought, this is really cool. You get an opportunity to create something from nothing. You get to create this cool looking thing on the screen that anybody in the world could look at. They took time to discuss with us as high school students those fundamental web design concepts and challenged us as students to create our own websites using concepts from those summer courses. I ended up falling in love with web design and used my knowledge on how to create basic websites to complete my projects in the Upward Bound program. And this began to ignite that passion in my life for computer science. And when I came to ETSU in 1999 as an undergraduate student, I came as an undeclared student, spending my first few semesters here exploring various career opportunities in the fields of psychology and education. I even thought about media and communications as I was DJ Stevie Mac for Jammin' 92.3, 103.9. However, as I navigated the various career opportunities in college, I was reminded about my time in Upward Bound. I was reminded about those courses that I took in web design and in computer science. And so I began here at ETSU, and I took 2 classes from the Department of Computing. And I fell in love with computer science. And it ended up completing my undergraduate and graduate degree here at ETSU in the Department of Computing, where I teach today. If it were not for the hard work and the dedication of Dr. Ronnie Gross and others through the Upward Bound program, pouring their lives into us as students, helping to show us that college is something that we could achieve, I would not be standing here today. We can talk about the statistical impact of a college degree, but as a first-generation college graduate, I can testify firsthand to the importance of a college degree and the impact that obtaining that college degree has in your life. Dr. Brian Nolan often says that the mission of ETSU is to improve the quality of life of the people in the region and beyond. This mission is lived out daily through the work of the federal TRIO programs here at ETSU. These programs improve the lives of middle school students, high school students, college students, adult learners, and veterans in our community. For me, this holds true. ETSU, in so many different ways, has improved the quality of my life, and it began in 1995 with the Upward Bound program. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Hendricks talked, but there's a lot of people that help make this happen. You all help make this happen. You all help TRIO alumni. We have our TRIO staff and all of our partners that help support our programs. So, Madam Chair, that's my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Excellent. Thank you both for speaking. We really appreciate it. Great job. I would now like to ask Dr. Nolan to provide his president's update to the board.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. This is the overview of the presentation. I'm going to talk some about institutional enrollment, applications for the class of '24. We'll review what is happening in Nashville with respect to budget as well as legislative agenda, and then move through a couple of other items on the agenda. But I want to adjust what I would typically say at this slide, because I think the best representation of the mission of this institution is what you just heard. An individual who came to this institution in 1989 and over the course of his tenure has brought $59 million in federal support to the university, support to the institution that doesn't just impact ETSU, but impacts the lives of families. And I had the chance to hear about Dr. Gross before I ever got here, because when I was system chancellor in West Virginia, I was intimately involved in efforts that that state was doing to assist first-generation low-income students. And Dr. Green and I spent a lot of time working in communities that had levels of poverty that are beyond description. But as I worked with people who were championing the cause of first-generation low-income and advocating for students, I learned that I was getting the job here. And I was at a meeting with individuals in the access world, and they said, "You know you're going to the school with the Michael Jordan of TRIO." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And they go, "The best TRIO director in the United States of America is on that campus." And over the course of the past 12 years, I've had the opportunity to watch your work. And today you had the opportunity to hear of impacts of current students as well as past students. But I doubt that when Dr. Gross came to work at ETSU in 1989, that he thought one of his students from Unicoi County would not only become an elected official, but would become the president of the Faculty Senate. So I don't know what will happen with our current students from Unicoi County, Hawkins County, Granger County, et cetera, but somewhere in that mix is the next generation of leader at this institution. And we can gloss over the impact of missions and we can gloss over the impact of programs. But $59 million is life-changing, and it has changed the lives of thousands of students. And that's the mission of the university. That's the mission that Sidney Gilbreth established in 1911. Here's the strategic plan that this board established when it moved through the implementation of the Committee for 125, Chapter 2. And I want to dive into some of those strategic planning elements. The first relates to access and success. I want to give you an update on spring enrollment. You can see that spring enrollment this year is up year over year across all levels, undergraduate, graduate, and total. Not only is undergraduate enrollment up, but it's up in key areas. The number of transfer students starting spring this year over last has increased. The number of new students starting as freshmen this spring year over last has increased. But we also have seen a significant increase in the number of students who are returning fall to spring. You see that our fall to spring retention elements are now back up at 90%. That 90% is where we were prior to COVID. So if these numbers remain constant, then we are back to where we were in 19, which was the highest retention rate in the history of the university. In that year, we had a 78% retention rate, nowhere close to Dr. Gross's 95 for students in his program. But the university's KPI goal for retention is 80%. So these numbers are pointing us in the right direction. As we look forward to next fall, this is the largest number of applications to the university at this moment in time in its history. That 13,418 applications is the largest number of applications we've had at this moment in time. So if trends continue to move in the right direction, we're in a position to have at a minimum 2,100 freshmen going into the fall. Anticipating your question of why do we have 13,400 apps and 8,800 individuals who've been admitted, Tennessee is a state that puts a heavy emphasis on college application days, and there are a lot of high schools across the states where students will submit applications but not complete. So the bulk of these are students who have not submitted their high school transcripts. Up until the beginning of February, the admissions staff is spending a significant amount of time on closing that gap. But after you hit February, the time shifts towards yield. So of the 8849, wanting to ensure that we maximize the yield for those students. That yield effort includes everything from handwritten cards from currently enrolled students to the president of the university and the VP for student life going high school by high school, as we did yesterday in Sweetwater,
handing out scholarships for students who've been provided scholarships at the university. So Joe Sherlin is not with us here today. I hope that you keep he and his family in your thoughts. His father is extremely ill. But yesterday I had the chance to be at Sweetwater High School with Joe Sherlin, who's an alum of Sweetwater High School, class of 1985. I learned yesterday he's been inducted into their Athletic Hall of Fame. His high school team was pretty good in basketball, even though Dr. Sherlin said he sat at the end of the bench the whole time. But it was rewarding to see Dr. Sherlin go into this school and have the chance to talk to the junior and senior class about the importance of post-secondary education. Not come to ETSU, but the importance of going to college, 2-year, 4-year, public, private, going to a TCAT. That's what we're doing in our P20 work, is getting out and driving home the importance of anything beyond high school to open career trajectories. But while we were there, we had the opportunity to surprise a number of seniors with scholarships on the spot. Those are examples of some of the things that we're doing to drive yield to ensure that we as a university meet our enrollment projections for the fall. And what we're doing as an institution is putting us in a slightly different position than other regional institutions across the nation. This is material prepared by EAB, and you see that the institutions on average nationally that are experiencing enrollment growth are large public institutions or elite institutions. Most of the regionals are experiencing enrollment decline. So what's happening at the big flagships, places like Alabama, Auburn, South Carolina, they're experiencing enrollment growth. There's only so many high school students to go around, and that is diminishing the pool of students who are available to attend large regionals and small regionals. Why are our numbers different? They're different because of the plan that our enrollment services unit has put in place from a recruitment perspective, but they're also different because of the elements that this board has put in place with respect to institutional culture. This is a very different institution than it was 12 years ago. 12 years ago, we did not have demand in the residence halls that would require quads and triples, but we do now. So our goal is to sustain this pace, but just as a reminder to the board, what you're seeing here is not what you see at other regional universities across the nation that are experiencing significant enrollment pressures. We've heard about the demographic cliff, but we are not only planning for this year's enrollment base, we're planning 10 and 15 years out. So those institutions that have relied heavily upon international students to make up for gaps in the local demand, that gameplay is going to be limited down the road because you see a double demographic cliff both domestically as well as internationally. But here's something we haven't talked to you about, and this is information that just came out within the past few weeks that looks at ACT scores, NAEP scores, and elements that project college readiness. And you see the impact of COVID. You see the learning loss because of COVID. Prior to COVID, 59% of all high school seniors in America met the competency level required to be successful in college level English. That number is now 51. The math readiness numbers are below 30. This is why we went through the 1.5-year long process to revitalize the Gen Ed core. This is the reason for that lift. We cannot have a Gen Ed core and core requirements for yesterday's students. What the provost, Dr. McGee and Dr. Harker led was a revision of that core to prepare for these students, because these students are going to have different learning challenges than the generation of students that graduated from this institution in the prior decade. But these are the types of data that we as an institution are looking at as we're planning not only now, but planning for strategic initiatives on the horizon. As we look to the next strategic planning pillar, operational sustainability, this is the material, once again, as a reminder that I shared with you in November. This is the state's recommendation in terms of operating. What you see here is a recommendation that also was included in Governor Lee's budget. So we're fortunate that there are new operating revenues for the institution. This number does not include the salary enhancements. So in finance today, when we talked about salary, that does not show here. This is simply the operating adjustment. So there's about $1.2 million total to cover increased costs related to inflation. But as we look at resources, we're fortunate at ETSU to have stable enrollment. We're fortunate in the state of Tennessee to be in a state that is investing in higher education. But as we look forward, what we're seeing is we have to be prepared to adjust the way we're structured, to adjust the way we operate. Well, this is a report that EAB put out 2 weeks ago. What have we been doing for the past 2 years at the university? Looking at college structure and implementing a new ERP. The implementation of the Oracle system is going to allow us to do more with less. We used to have 5 people who ran payroll, and as I've shared with you before, 1 person whose entire job was to calculate overtime by hand. Now, as we transition into the Oracle system, a lot of that will be automated, thereby allowing us to retrain those individuals to meet the emerging needs of the university. So I'm not saying everything we're doing is perfect. We make mistakes, and you're aware that we make mistakes, but we do try to be ahead of the curve, and what EAB is calling for here is that we've got to be prepared to look at staff experiences and scale work at a reasonable level. That's embedded in the way that we're approaching the Oracle implementation. This is the THEC recommendation around capital. This is the THEC recommendation around capital. The governor funded 1 project on this list. It's the number 6 project at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, the Fletcher Hall addition and renovation. That project was funded because if you look to the far right column, you see $30 million. There's a private gift towards that project that if the state did not fund the project, that private gift would not have materialized. The element of this that I find solace in at the university is that our project, number 3 on the list this year, number 1 on the list last year, is Brown Hall Phase 2. Many of you have worked in state government much longer than I. I don't know the last time the state paid for half a roof and it didn't pay for the other half of the roof. So I am confident that this building will be funded, and we're working with members of our delegation to work this into the final budget for this year. But we are not pausing on this work. We're designing the entire building. We are preparing to move forward with the renovations for this facility, and some of that element of renovation includes the lease of what was the Northeast space in downtown Johnson City. We have entered into a multi-year lease with Johnson City to acquire that building, and we are in the beginning works. It will move forward over the summer of moving faculty from Brown to downtown Johnson City so that we can prepare for that renovation. Burleson Hall renovations are underway. For those of you who saw the news coverage right before the break, one of the most beautiful things that I've had the chance to see at this institution in the time period that I've been president is the creativity and spontaneity of our faculty and staff in that building and the love that they declared for the building. You wouldn't think that people would love a dusty old building that really wasn't all that nice to begin with, but there was love conveyed for that building as we had faculty members literally convey it on walls across that facility, that they met their husband in that building. They met their love for literature and languages in that building. And I've got to admit, after the semester was over, I went up in a classroom and put graffiti on the wall as well, because it was magical to see the connection between people and space. That building is now vacant. It is being completely renovated as part of the project for the new academic building. If we could lift these screens up, you'd see the gigantic hole in the center of campus. When you return to campus in May, you'll see steel coming up and out of the ground, and the exoskeleton for the new academic building will be coming to life. You've heard this morning about the work that's occurring in Valley Brook. The University Commons is being expanded, so if we were to lift those blinds, you would see the fence all the way down to football. And hopefully by the time the season starts this fall, we'll have taken the green space all the way from the current edge of Commons to the close. And then last, with respect to capital, we will bring before this board in this calendar year the 10-year Strategic Facilities Master Plan, which includes potential site locations for proposed and new buildings, restructures of residence halls, potential Greek Village, et cetera. And all of those projects, the 10-year plan, will come to you in this calendar year. We had an opportunity to hear earlier today the presentation of our Cleary report, and then we spent a fair amount of time in a discussion around enterprise risk, walking through the inherent risk present to campus from the world in which we live in. Our prayers go out to families in Kansas City who suffered imaginable loss this week, and it's our responsibility as an institution to ensure that we put the protocols and technology in place to keep the campus safe. We thank the General Assembly for the $1.2 million grant that we received earlier this month. These resources will be invested into door locks. Our Onity lock system is aging, and we will bring forward not only enhancements there, but in an upcoming presentation to the board, we'll talk about some of the safety enhancements that we want to put in place. As we look forward, I mentioned Voyager earlier. There was a brief presentation that Christy Graham provided in terms of an update, but at a high level, we're moving through the final elements of data testing now. User acceptance testing begins in April, and user training runs throughout the close of the spring. We've got a lot of work to do around balances and payroll validation, but we are on target to go live July 1. One of the elements that we haven't talked a great deal about, but it's something that I think has the chance to be transformative, is the work that is running this spring concurrent with the technology around Voyager to change the classification and compensation system for our campus. I grew up in a family where my father worked for the federal government. I didn't know what he did, but I knew he worked for the federal government. And I knew for the longest time that my father was a GS-11, and that grade meant something to him. It meant pride in his job, but it also meant consternation that the gap between an 11 and a 12 was a pay increase. And as long as he was locked in at an 11, he was locked into a pay scale, irrespective of training and advanced education that he might have achieved. What my dad was alluding to was the wish that the federal government would have changed its class and comp structure. And here at East Tennessee State University, we also have families who are locked into pay grades. We have employers and supervisors who, in order to get their employees raises, have to put in place job audits or stipends for work above and beyond the base to get hardworking and well-deserved employees raises. When this new classification and compensation structure is done, we'll move to a simplified class structure with broader pay ranges, thereby allowing supervisors the opportunity for greater latitude around compensation. This is a heavy lift. There are more than 1,500 staff at the institution. All will be slotted into new job families, and you see just a brief glimpse of those job families here. I want to thank Lori Erickson and her team, who will meet with supervisor after supervisor, ensuring that the families that have been slotted and the job grades that have been assigned are appropriate. This is a net revenue constant proposal. There's no new revenue to pay for the changes in job families or comp, even though we know that individuals will have new salary lines. So over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, we will implement pay adjustments to meet the new ranges in the system. It's one of the reasons why when Trustee Fry Clark today talked about the importance of salary, it's critical for us not only to look at the salary investment that state has provided, but to look at efficiencies that we can then redeploy. There are a lot of institutions across the country that are going through pretty difficult restructure conversations, and they're going through those conversations to try to fill budget holes. The work that we're doing here at ETSU to identify available resources for reinvestment is geared at moving these numbers. We all love to beat the University of Tennessee Chattanooga. I watched the game the other night. I wish we had the ability to knock down a few more shots, but I sat there and watched Dr. Sanders squirm because he hates to lose to his alma mater. I'm tired of looking at this gap between us and Chattanooga with respect to salary, but to close that gap is $23 million. So that's the volume of work that's in front of us, is identifying existing resources that allow us to deploy those resources towards salary. Because not only do we have that gap for faculty, we have that gap for staff. And we're not going to close this overnight, but this is our #1 strategic priority as we look for efficiencies across the system, is to redeploy, to reinvest in our people using a new class and comp structure for staff to do so. Let me pause for a second because I've thrown a fair amount at you here. So let me see if there are any questions around state budget, operating salary, Voyager, or enrollment before moving into the next segment of my presentation. Okay, I've either got your attention or I've put you to sleep. The chair mentioned this in her comments. We are excited to have the second Regional Economic Forum on campus. That date is March 22nd at the Martin Center. Commissioner Stuart McWhirter will be our featured speaker. But at this forum, we will share to the general public some of the data that the chair referenced. Our goal as an institution, both in CBAT as well as in the College of Education, is to be the data warehouse for the region. So for economic developers, for individuals who are trying to attract, recruit, or promote this region, for us to be the defined data source. So I've shared with you at prior meetings the data that we've released on P20, demographic information. This is a snapshot of some of the economic data that our faculty have placed out onto this website. So you've got macro level data about the nation's economy. You have regional data about our labor and workforce participation rates, the number of new individuals entering the workforce, as well as changes in our unemployment rate. But also information on our housing stock, the inventory and prices associated within that inventory. The chair earlier this morning talked about some of the things that institutions are doing to assist faculty and staff in finding affordable housing. That's an issue here, and you can see it on this data. And we didn't plant this when you were making the comment. I thought, goodness gracious, it's as if she stole my slides. But look at this. In Johnson City in 2016, the average price for a home was right at $180,000. That same home now is right at $370,000. But go back and look at our salaries. So we have a responsibility as an institution to ensure that we're providing resources to keep up with the costs of living in an area that no longer is as affordable as we thought it once was. Next slide is a response to questions that Trustee Ayers has asked with frequency, which is a series of questions around how we as an institution track what happens to our graduates after they leave. I want to take a moment to thank Dr. Joe Chappell. There are individuals who work behind the scenes at a university to make things move, but those individuals are national leaders in their work. The State Higher Education Executive Officers is a national organization that is exploring this element of return on an investment and employment outcomes. And they have created communities of practice, a grant-funded element that provides information to entities that are interested in this from a research perspective. And you see the individuals who are included in this grant. There's only one university, and that's us, and that's because of Dr. Chappell. Not only is he leading this work, he was selected as a fellow at Harvard this summer, and this work ties into his Harvard fellowship. So as a result of his work, we hope to be in a position to provide to you in the near future very detailed information about what happens to our graduates after they walk across our stage. Talked at length about some of these strategic initiatives, but I just want to dive down a little bit deeper on a few of them. The Strategic Enrollment Management Task Force is an ongoing effort by the university to ensure that our enrollment efforts are cutting edge. Thank you for approving the work of the Gen Ed Committee. That redesign ensures that our curricula remains relevant. We're going to have a lunch and learn or a special session around the work that we're doing on the academic restructuring. The task force report has been out for public comment and feedback, and the provost and I, within the next week and a half or so, will provide our recommendation to the campus with respect to college structure and program reorganization. From a process perspective, throughout the spring, we will receive feedback from faculty, staff, and the community. We'll have a series of town halls. We'll then take that information, weigh that information, and then make a final recommendation to this board in May around college reorganization. So just as visibility to the board, when you hear that the provost and I have released our grand plan to restructure the university, that is a draft plan. Nothing will be final until we bring the recommendation to you in the spring, and we'll spend 3 months gaining feedback on those reorg plans. But one area, just to give you a glimpse of what we're looking at, is how do we reduce redundancy across campus? We have multiple programs that offer courses in very similar areas. So if I want to focus on mass comm with an accent in digital media and communications, I can get a degree in one college, and I can get a very similar degree in another college. So how do we look to minimize that confusion? But then on another way, how do we look to be strategic? You heard today the presentation on synthetic biology and the opportunities there. We're going to grow an engineering program. We're going to have a bioengineering program. Engineering right now sits in CBAT. It's small, it's technical in focus. So a critical question that we have to think through to bring to you is what is the proper home for engineering, and how do we put it with a cluster of programs that allow it to grow organically and purposefully. So those are some of the things that we're going to be working through as a campus. We're looking in depth about financial aid. The questions that were posed today around cost. If you just did my Archie Bunker math and looked at the total volume of scholarship that we spend and our total tuition and fee revenue, our total discount rate's about 27%. But Trustee Allen, we'll bring to you an individualized calculator so that you can see how aid packages vary based upon family need, student merit ability, as well as participation in clubs and organizations. Our financial aid structure is broad, but it's also complex. I've been in probably 8 high schools in the past 3 weeks talking to students, and students are extremely concerned about cost. And I can ask a series of questions that within about 2 minutes give me a decent sense of what they're going to pay. I can ask them a question about their GPA. I can ask them a question about their ACT score. I can ask them how much their family makes, and I can ask them if they're in the marching band. And I can add all of that up and give them a general estimate around cost, but not a specific estimate around cost. So what we're trying to get at in this financial aid optimization study is how do we take the investments that we're making as a campus and ensure that we're getting the proper return on that investment to maximize our enrollment rate. Now, just as a note to the board, you may hear questions about why is the FAFSA delayed? Why have I not received my financial aid package from ETSU, and why are things behind schedule? The federal government changed the FAFSA this year, and Trustee Stigall-Jones is smiling. As with most things at the federal government level, it's behind schedule. So normally we would have already been able to inform students about their need-based aid packages. We probably will not be able to inform students about their complete aid package until late spring. And that's just not us, that's every public university around the country. So if you're hearing concerns about why haven't I got my scholarship award yet, the answer is it's the federal government's fault, but we're working as fast as we can. Now let's set that to the side. If I'm a first-generation student in Dr. Gross's TRIO program, that inability to have an answer to a question around scholarship may be the difference between me coming here and becoming a computer scientist or taking Tennessee Promise and going to a TCAT and limiting my horizon. So it's critical that we get this information into the hands of students as quickly as we can, and that's what's happening with a lot of the work in financial aid. And then the final element is the redesign of our budget model. This was the question that Christy kind of pushed through quickly, and I will push through it quickly as well. We've had a decentralized budget process for the better part of the past 6-7 years. We've got a committee that's looking at changes to that model with the goal of simplifying that model so that our faculty has a better sense of where our resources are coming from and being expended, but also our deans have a sense of how they can start new programs and to retain resources and revenues to help them be innovative. And we'll keep you informed of this work, but it's going to take the better part of a year and a half. And I've already talked a lot about some of the things that are happening here, so I'll skip over that slide. With respect to Nashville, it is a very different legislative session. I don't know if I've ever been to a state of the state where it was as difficult to hear the governor as it was this year, but the level of tension that's in Nashville so early in the session is palpable. There's not the level of resources available in a discretionary manner that there's been in years past. Fiscally, it's a tight session. The state is making investments in some challenges on the franchise and excise tax that are proactive, but as a result of that proactivity, there's just not the discretionary revenue that there's been in the past. We are closely monitoring conversations around capital and are hopeful that we can continue to proactively make the case of the need to fund the second half of Brown Hall. For those of us who've spent our career in higher education, the third bullet is of importance. For a board, the importance of potential changes to the function and purpose of THEC is that if the legislation that is proposed by Representative Williams and Senator Lundberg is passed, this board would have unilateral ability to approve new academic programs for our institution. It would have greater control over tuition and fee setting authority than you do presently. So we continue to closely monitor this legislation, but if it does pass, it will have passed by the time we meet next. And the impact on us would be greater authority for our board than you hold at the current moment. As we look forward to the months ahead, the chair mentioned the upcoming Festival of Ideas. Mitch Albom will be on campus here in a few weeks. For those of you who've had the chance to attend either Jagged Little Pill or My Fair Lady this week was just beyond description. It was phenomenal. So tickets are still available for the upcoming shows, but there's more than just the things that you see here. We hope that you as board members have the opportunity to get involved in the life of the campus, because the life of the campus is more than what happens in the arts. It's more than what happens in big speakers. It's more than basketball and football games. It's also the opportunity to be a part of programs. And I want to thank Trustee Stigall-Jones for her work as a member of the selecting committee for the Roan program. This is a program that was started decades ago by Louis Gump, and I think all of us know Mr. Gump. Louis' goal was for this program to grow, and this fall we'll accept 11 students into the Roan program, the largest class of Roan scholars in the history of the institution. I had the chance to read the files. I'm glad that I had a scheduling conflict and I wasn't there to make the decision. But as board members, if you are interested in being involved in some of these types of elements, just let us know, because I think there's nothing more rewarding than the chance for you to see students come in as potential ETSU undergrads in high school and to watch that blossom that transpires occur. We shared with you the story of Shivam Patel, a young man who was a finalist for the Rhodes Scholarship. I met Shivam at his interview for the Rome. And Shivam was a first-generation student. His family ran a small convenience store in Hamlin County, and he saw that scholarship as an opportunity to change the arc of history for his family. He's now a first-year student at Johns Hopkins in medicine, and the chance to see that young man as a 17-year-old and then see him now as 20, however he is, that's the beauty of what happens in these engagements. So if you as board members would like to get engaged in these types of programs, just please let us know. Now this is to see who was paying attention. So earlier today we cheated and gave you the answer to this question, but I used to do this thing called Did You Know? I would go out across Rotary groups and say, did you know that the largest collection of dung in the history of the world is at East Tennessee State University? Why? Because we had a paleontologist who studied fossil refuse. Dr. Mead's now gone to the west. He's studying Tyrannosaurus rex out in the Dakotas. So we no longer have that collection, but we do have this. So on what success metric is ETSU number 2 in the nation?
Pharmacy school?
Yep. We have the second highest pass rate of any college of pharmacy in the nation on the NAPLEX. So Trustee Grisham, I've got some Hershey's Kisses over there. You can have the rest of the bag as the recipient of the prize for passing the President's Did You Know test. I think as we look forward to what's on the horizon for the spring, we're going to blink and commencement is here. This is going to be an active year on campus. It's a year in which you've had a sense of the things that your staff is working on provided to you today, but there's a lot that's working around us in the world. This is an election year. There's going to be a lot that transpires across this campus. And our goal as an institution is to provide an environment in which students have the opportunity to learn from one another, and to learn about one another. And I know as we move through the spring, there'll be multiple learning opportunities. And we look forward to working with the board as we navigate the winds of the spring, the winds of the legislature, and first pitch is in 25 minutes. Baseball season starts today. Our team will navigate the winds of spring. But we thank you all for the leadership that you provide to the institution, and we'd be happy to address questions.
Any questions? Thank you, President Nolan, and we appreciate your leadership. So, since there's no need for the board to convene an executive session today, I would ask Governor Ramsey for a motion to adjourn the second. Okay, we are adjourned.
John Paul, can you let us know when we're not live?